My name is Naomi, and I am 34 years old. For the past 8 months, I have been living in my childhood bedroom at my parents' house, trying to save up for a down payment on my own place after a devastating breakup. Everything was going according to plan until yesterday, when my parents called me down for a family meeting. They informed me that they were doubling my rent from $500 to $1,200 a month, all to support my younger brother Jake and his latest business venture. Jake has always been their golden child, never having to face any real financial responsibility. Before I share my bold decision, let me know where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to deal with family favoritism. Trust me, you won't believe what happens next. Growing up in the suburban neighborhood of Mapleton, our family of four appeared picture perfect from the outside. My father, Thomas, worked as a high school principal, while my mother, Diane, managed a local boutique. Then there was my younger brother, Jake, 6 years my junior, and me. But behind closed doors, the family dynamics were anything but balanced. From as early as I can remember, Jake was always the center of attention. When he was 10, my parents bought him an expensive gaming system for getting a B- on a math test he had previously failed. Meanwhile, when I made honor roll for the third year in a row, I received a congratulatory card. Just a card. No gift, no celebration dinner, just acknowledgement. Jake needs more encouragement, my mother would explain whenever I questioned the disparity. You were always so independent and responsible, Naomi. Jake is different. Different meant privileged. While I started babysitting at 14 and working at the local grocery store by 16 to save for college, Jake was given allowances well into his 20s. I still remember my father telling me, "College isn't going to pay for itself, Naomi," while simultaneously paying for Jake's expensive soccer camp that same summer. I managed to put myself through state university with a combination of scholarships, student loans, and working part-time. My accounting degree didn't come easy, but I was proud of earning it entirely on my own merit. By 26, I had secured a steady position at Westfield Financial Services, a respectable firm in our city. I wasn't making six figures, but I was comfortable and slowly building my savings. Jake, on the other hand, dropped out of community college after 3 semesters. College isn't for everyone. My father said the irony of his earlier statements to me completely lost on him. Jake then cycled through a series of jobs, never lasting more than a few months at any of them. There was the time he worked at a sporting goods store but quit because his manager was totally unreasonable about him showing up late. Then there was his brief stint as a barista, which ended when he argued with a customer. Each failure was met with understanding and support from my parents. Jake just hasn't found his passion yet. My mother would defend him at family gatherings when relatives would ask what he was up to these days. He's so talented, he just needs to find the right fit. By the time Jake turned 28 this year, he had attempted to launch 3 different business ventures. First was an online sports memorabilia shop that never made it past a hastily created website. Then came his food delivery app idea, which failed to launch after my parents fronted $5,000 for initial development. The third was a plan to become a fitness influencer, which resulted in expensive camera equipment gathering dust in his room. Through all of this, Jake continued living at home rent-free. My parents covered his cell phone bill, car insurance, and gave him spending money whenever he needed it. It was frustrating to witness, but I had built my own life and tried not to let it bother me. That changed 8 months ago when I discovered my boyfriend of 5 years, Daniel, had been cheating on me with his coworker. We had been saving for a house together, combining our resources toward what I thought was our shared future. When I uncovered his betrayal, I was devastated, not just emotionally, but financially. Half of our joint savings belonged to him, leaving me with far less than I had planned for at this stage in my life. With my lease ending and housing prices in our area skyrocketing, I reluctantly accepted my parents' offer to move back home temporarily. We agreed on what I thought was a fair arrangement: $500 monthly for my old bedroom, and shared use of common areas plus splitting utility costs. It wasn't ideal, but it would allow me to rebuild my savings more quickly. "It's just until you get back on your feet," my mother had said, hugging me as I unpacked my belongings into my childhood bedroom, still decorated with my high school debate team trophies and faded music posters. At first, things were relatively peaceful. I maintained my independence, cooking my own meals, doing my laundry, and generally keeping to myself. I worked overtime whenever possible, determined to save enough for a down payment on a small condo. I even started to enjoy certain aspects of being home, like Sunday morning coffee with my mom, or helping my dad with his vegetable garden. Jake was barely around during those first few months, usually out with friends or holed up in his room playing video games. When we did interact, it was civil but distant. I had long ago accepted that we would never have the close sibling relationship I had once hoped for. Too much resentment had built up over the years, too many instances of blatant favoritism creating a wedge between us. I had a plan. 12 more months of aggressive saving, minimal spending, and I would have enough for a decent down payment. I even created a detailed spreadsheet tracking every dollar, watching with satisfaction as my savings account grew steadily each month. For the first time since my breakup, I felt hopeful about my future. Little did I know that my parents had a very different plan in mind, one that would force me to make a choice I never expected to face. Everything changed 3 months into my stay, when Jake burst into the house one evening during family dinner, bubbling with excitement about his newest business idea. I was quietly eating the pasta I'd made for myself when his booming voice filled the dining room. "Mom, Dad, you're not going to believe this opportunity," he announced, not even acknowledging my presence as he pulled up a chair. "I was talking to this guy at the gym, and he's in the sports equipment business. He says there's a huge market right now for high-end athletic gear." My parents immediately perked up, putting down their forks to give Jake their full attention. I continued eating, trying to tune out what I assumed would be another doomed business pitch. "I'm thinking of opening a premium sports equipment store. Like, not just regular stuff you can get anywhere, but specialized gear for serious athletes," Jake explained, gesturing enthusiastically. "The profit margins are incredible." "That sounds wonderful, honey," my mother gushed. "You have always had such a good eye for quality sports equipment." My father nodded in agreement. "It's a growing market for sure. People are willing to pay top dollar for the right gear." I couldn't help myself. "Do you have a business plan?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. Starting a retail business requires significant capital. Jake glared at me. "I'm working on it, Naomi. Not everything happens overnight." "Jake has a vision," my father interjected, giving me a look that clearly said to back off. "The details will fall into place." Over the next few weeks, Jake's business idea was all my parents could talk about. They spent hours helping him research locations, discussing potential suppliers, and brainstorming names for the store. Champion's Choice was the frontrunner, complete with a logo my mother had sketched out. One evening, while getting a glass of water from the kitchen, I overheard Jake talking to my parents in the living room. "So I think I need about 30,000 to get started," he was saying. "That would cover the initial inventory, first month's rent on the store, and some basic renovations." I froze glass midway to my lips. "That's a lot of money, son," my father replied, but his tone wasn't dismissive. It was contemplative. "We might be able to tap into our retirement fund," my mother suggested. "It's an investment in your future." I nearly dropped my glass. Their retirement fund. The same fund they told me was untouchable when I asked for a small loan for graduate school years ago. I quietly slipped back upstairs, my heart pounding with indignation. But rather than dwelling on the unfairness, I channeled my energy into my own plans. The very next day during my lunch break, I decided to check out a condo building near my office that had recently listed a unit for sale. It was a small one-bedroom, nothing fancy, but it was in a safe neighborhood with good amenities, just a 15-minute walk from work. The moment I stepped inside Unit 305, I felt something click. Sunlight streamed through the windows of the open-concept living and dining area. The kitchen was compact, but updated with stainless steel appliances and granite countertops. The bedroom easily fit a queen-sized bed with room for a dresser and nightstand, and the bathroom featured a shower with beautiful subway tiling. "What do you think?" asked Loretta, the real estate agent who'd agreed to meet me on short notice. "I love it," I admitted, running my hand along the kitchen counter. "How much are they asking?" When she told me the price, my heart sank a little. It was at the upper end of my budget, and I would need to save for at least 4 more months to have a decent down payment. "It's a hot market," Loretta warned. "Units in this building don't stay available for long." I thanked her for her time and promised to crunch the numbers. All afternoon at work, I couldn't stop thinking about the condo. It wasn't just a place to live. It represented freedom, independence, a fresh start after everything with Daniel. That evening, I excitedly told my parents about the condo over dinner, pulling up pictures on my phone to show them. It's perfect for me, I said, scrolling through the photos. And it's so close to work. I'd save a fortune on gas and car maintenance. My mother glanced at the pictures briefly. It looks small, Naomi. Wouldn't you want something bigger? Not right now, I explained. It's just me, and it's actually a good size for one person. Plus, it's in my price range. My father barely looked at the photos. Real estate is a big commitment. Are you sure you're ready for that? Their lukewarm response was deflating but not surprising. They spent another 20 minutes discussing Jake's business plans before I excused myself to my room. Once there, I opened my laptop and created a new savings plan. If I cut back even further on expenses and put in for extra overtime at work, I might be able to make an offer on the condo in 3 months instead of 4. I fell asleep that night dreaming about paint colors for my potential new home and the freedom of having my own space again. 2 weeks after discovering the perfect condo, I arrived home from work to find my parents sitting at the kitchen table looking unusually serious. Jake wasn't around, which was atypical for family discussions. Naomi, can we talk to you? My father asked as I set down my work bag. Sure, I replied, sliding into a chair across from them. Everything okay? My mother reached over and patted my hand. We wanted to discuss your living situation. A knot formed in my stomach. Had they somehow found out I was planning to move? Were they going to ask me to stay longer to help out? What about it? I asked cautiously. My father cleared his throat. We've been thinking, and we feel that the current arrangement isn't quite equitable. I frowned, confused. What do you mean I've been paying the rent we agreed upon, and I've been covering my share of utilities and groceries? Yes, but given the current housing market, $500 is well below what you'd be paying elsewhere, my father continued. And you're using utilities taking up space. My mother jumped in, her voice soothing in a way that immediately put me on edge. What your father is trying to say is that we think it's time to adjust your rent to better reflect the value you're receiving. Adjust it how much, I asked, already knowing I wouldn't like the answer. We think $1,200 would be more appropriate, my father stated matter-of-factly. The number hit me like a physical blow. 1,200. That's more than double what we're paying now. Why would you suddenly more than double my rent? My parents exchanged glances before my mother spoke. Well, to be honest, Naomi, we need the additional income. We're planning to help Jake with startup costs for his new business. The pieces clicked together in my mind. So you're charging me more rent to fund Jake's business venture, the one he has no experience or qualifications for. Don't be dramatic, my father said, his tone hardening. We're simply bringing your contribution to a more market-appropriate level. And yes, as a family, we're supporting Jake's entrepreneurial efforts. But what about my plans? I countered, fighting to keep my voice steady. I told you I'm saving to buy that condo. This would completely derail my timeline. My mother sighed. Naomi, you're 34 years old with a stable career. Jake is still finding his way. He needs this opportunity. And I don't need a place of my own. After everything with Daniel, after working so hard to rebuild my savings, you have options, my father insisted. You could find a roommate situation or rent somewhere further from the city center. Jake doesn't have those options right now. I stared at them in disbelief. Jake has had every advantage. He's never had to pay for anything. He's living here rent-free at 28. That's different, my mother said dismissively. Jake has been focused on building his future. And what have I been doing? I asked, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. I've been working since I was 16. I put myself through college. I've never asked you for anything. And we were very proud of your independence, my father said, as if that was some kind of compliment. But now you're in a position to help the family, and we're asking you to do your part. Les, by subsidizing Jake's latest hobby business that will probably fail like all the others. As soon as the words left my mouth, I regretted them. Not because they weren't true, but because I knew they would only make the situation worse. My father's face darkened. That was uncalled for, Naomi. Your brother is trying to build something meaningful. And I'm not. I shot back. My mother intervened, her voice syrupy sweet. Of course you are, honey, but you have to understand you're benefiting from living here. You're using our electricity, our water, our internet, the house we worked hard to pay for. I took a deep breath, trying to process what was happening. When I moved back in, we agreed on $500. That was the deal. Circumstances change, my father said firmly. We're informing you now so you have time to adjust your budget. Starting next month, your rent will be $1,200. And if I can't or won't pay that amount, I asked, already knowing the answer, then you'll need to find alternative living arrangements, he replied, his tone making it clear the discussion was over. You're an adult, Naomi. Adults pay their way. The irony of that statement when discussing Jake's perpetual dependence was not lost on me, but I was too stunned to point it out. I need to think about this, I said, pushing back from the table and standing up. There's nothing to think about, my father called after me as I headed for the stairs. The decision has been made. $1,200 starting next month, no negotiation. I closed my bedroom door behind me, leaned against it, and finally let the tears come. Not just tears of frustration or anger, but deep, painful tears of betrayal. The message couldn't have been clearer. Jake's dreams were worth investing in. Mine were not. As I wiped my eyes, I looked around at my childhood bedroom, suddenly feeling like a stranger in what had once been my home. In that moment, I knew something had fundamentally broken, something that perhaps had been fracturing for years, but had finally snapped beyond repair. I didn't sleep that night. My mind raced with calculations, options, and the crushing weight of realizing just how little my parents valued my goals compared to my brothers. By morning, a clarity had settled over me. I knew exactly what I needed to do. Sitting at my desk, I pulled out a notebook and began meticulously planning my exit strategy. First, I assessed my financial situation. I had managed to save just over $17,000 since moving back home. The condo I wanted required a $20,000 down payment for the bank to consider my mortgage application. I was $3,000 short. Under the original arrangement, I would have reached my goal in 3 to 4 months. With the new rent amount, it would take at least 8 more months, possibly longer, if any unexpected expenses arose. I couldn't wait that long, not just financially but emotionally. The thought of continuing to live in a home where I was clearly valued less than my brother was unbearable. I opened my laptop and pulled up the listing for Unit 305 again. It was still available, but Loretta's warning echoed in my mind. Units like this don't stay on the market long. I grabbed my phone and called her. Loretta? It's Naomi Taylor. I'm interested in making an offer on the condo we looked at, but I have a situation. Is there any possibility of holding it for a short period while I secure the full down payment? Loretta explained that the seller was looking for a quick closing, but might be willing to work with me if I could provide earnest money immediately and demonstrate that the rest would be forthcoming very soon. I can transfer $5,000 today as earnest money, I told her, and I'll have the rest within 2 weeks. Can you speak to the seller and see if that would work? She agreed to try, and I hung up feeling both terrified and exhilarated. Now I just needed to figure out where to get the remaining $3,000. After considering and rejecting several options, I called my best friend Sarah. We'd been friends since college, and I knew if anyone would help me without judgment, it would be her. Sarah, I need a favor, a big one. I explained the situation, including the painful details of my parents' decision and my plan to leave. Those jerks, Sarah exclaimed when I finished. Of course I'll help you. I've got about $4,000 in my emergency fund. You can have $3,000 of it, no problem. I'll pay you back with interest. I promised, tears of gratitude forming. As soon as my next few paychecks come in. Don't worry about interest, she insisted. Just invite me to your housewarming party. With the financial aspect tentatively resolved, I moved on to the logistics. I researched moving companies and found one with availability for the following Saturday, when I knew my parents and Jake would be attending a cousin's wedding 3 hours away. I had declined the invitation weeks ago, claiming a work commitment. Next, I began the process of discreetly packing my belongings. Each evening after work, I would fill a few boxes, careful to maintain the appearance of my room so my parents wouldn't notice anything amiss. I stored the packed boxes in my closet, which they never entered. I contacted the utility companies to set up services at my new address, scheduled an internet installation, and ordered basic furniture for delivery the day after my move. all while maintaining a calm facade at home. I continued to join family dinners, make small talk, and even listen to Jake's increasingly elaborate business plans without comment. I didn't want to tip my hand or give them any reason to suspect I was planning something. One evening, about a week before my planned move, my mother knocked on my door. "Naomi, do you have a moment?" I quickly closed the browser tab showing my new furniture selections. "Sure, Mom, what's up?" She sat on the edge of my bed. "I wanted to make sure you're okay with the new arrangement. You've been quiet since our discussion." For a moment, I considered telling her how hurt I was, how unfair it all seemed. But the determined look in her eyes told me it wouldn't make any difference. "I'm adjusting to the idea," I lied. "It's just a big change in my budget." She nodded sympathetically, but her next words revealed her true concern. "So you'll have the first increased payment ready for the first of the month. Not, 'Are you really okay?' or 'Maybe we can compromise.' Just confirming I would pay up." "I'm figuring it out," I said noncommittally. "Good," she said, patting my knee as she stood. "It means a lot to us and to Jake. He's so excited about this business. I really think this could be the one that takes off." Just like the last three ventures I thought but didn't say. Instead, I forced a smile and nodded until she left the room. As soon as the door closed behind her, I returned to my planning. Loretta had called earlier with good news. The seller had accepted my earnest money and was willing to give me 2 weeks to come up with the rest of the down payment. Sarah had already transferred the $3,000 to my account. Everything was falling into place. In just a few days, I would be free from the constant reminder that I would always come second in my parents' priorities. The thought brought both profound sadness and unexpected relief. As I continued packing that night, I came across an old family photo. We were at the beach, all four of us, smiling in the sunshine. I must have been about 12, which would make Jake around 6. We looked happy, normal. I wondered when and how things had gone so wrong, how the gulf between how my parents treated us had grown so wide. With a sigh, I placed the photo in a box. Whatever happened next, I knew I was making the right choice for myself. It was time to put my own needs first, since clearly no one else in my family was going to. Saturday arrived with perfect timing. I woke up early, heart pounding with a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. Through my window, I watched my parents load their overnight bags into the car for the wedding. Jake emerged from the house last looking disgruntled about having to wear a suit so early in the morning. "Are you sure you can't come, Naomi?" My mother called up to my window when she spotted me. "Cousin Bethany would love to see you." "Sorry, Mom," I replied, the lie coming easily after a week of practice. "This work project can't wait. You all have fun, though." I waited until their car disappeared down the street before springing into action. The moving company was scheduled to arrive in 1 hour, which gave me just enough time for final preparations. I pulled all the packed boxes from my closet and stacked them in the hallway. The furniture from my room, a desk dresser and nightstand I'd bought myself, would be coming with me. Everything else would stay behind. At precisely 9 o'clock, a truck pulled into the driveway. 2 men introduced themselves as Mike and Tony from Quick Move Services. They worked efficiently, carrying my boxes and furniture down the stairs and into the truck, while I supervised and checked items off my inventory list. "Not taking the bed?" Mike asked as they wrapped my desk in protective padding. "No, I've ordered a new one for delivery tomorrow," I explained. The twin bed from my childhood would remain another piece of the past I was leaving behind. By 11:30, the truck was loaded and ready to go. I stood in the empty room that had been mine since childhood, now stripped of everything except the bed, a bookshelf, and the pale blue paint my mother had chosen when I was 14. I felt a momentary pang of nostalgia quickly replaced by determination. Downstairs, I placed an envelope on the kitchen table. Inside was a letter I'd spent hours drafting and redrafting. It explained my decision without being accusatory, thanked them for letting me stay these past months, and provided my new cell phone number, but not my address. I wasn't ready for unannounced visits. The letter read, "Mom and Dad. By the time you read this, I will have moved into my own place. I want to thank you for opening your home to me these past 8 months, while I recovered from my breakup with Daniel. I've decided that it's time for me to stand on my own feet again. The recent discussion about increasing my rent made me realize that we have different priorities right now. You want to support Jake's business venture, and I need to focus on building my own future. I wish you all the best and hope that Jake's store is successful. I'll call once I'm settled in my new place. Love, Naomi. I didn't mention how hurt I was or how unfair their decision felt. What would be the point? They'd made their choice clear, and now I was making mine. With one last look around the house I'd grown up in, I locked the front door, placed my key under the mat where they always kept a spare, and climbed into my car to follow the moving truck to my new home. During the 15-minute drive to the condo, my phone began to buzz with notifications. The wedding must have been boring if they were checking their phones already. I silenced it without looking at the messages. Today was about moving forward, not being pulled back into family drama. When I arrived at the condo building, the moving team was already waiting. They carried everything up to Unit 305, efficiently placing boxes and furniture according to my instructions. The whole process took less than an hour. After signing off on the move and tipping the movers generously, I closed the door behind them and stood in the center of my new living room, surrounded by boxes and the few pieces of furniture I'd brought from my parents' house. It felt surreal. The space was mine, well mine, and the bank's. I'd signed the final paperwork yesterday, transferred the remaining down payment, and received the keys this morning before the move. I was officially a homeowner. I spent the next few hours unpacking essentials and arranging what furniture I had. The delivery of my new bed couch and dining table was scheduled for tomorrow. But for tonight, I'd make do with my desk chair and an air mattress Sarah had lent me. Around 4 in the afternoon, I finally checked my phone. 12 missed calls, 27 text messages, and 5 voicemails, all from my parents and Jake. The text messages started innocuously. Naomi, are you home? The car isn't in the driveway. Mom, 1:15 p.m. Then they escalated quickly. We found your note, call us immediately. Dad, 1:22 p.m. What the hell? Naomi, Mom is crying. How could you just leave like this? Jake, 1:30 p.m. This is completely irresponsible and immature. Call us back right now. Dad, 1:45 p.m. Please just let us know you're safe. We're worried. Mom, 2:10 p.m. The voicemails followed a similar pattern, with my father's voice growing increasingly angry and my mother's increasingly tearful. Jake left one message accusing me of being selfish and thinking only of myself. I put the phone down without responding. They hadn't been concerned about my feelings or plans when they decided to more than double my rent to fund Jake's latest scheme. Why should I rush to ease their discomfort now? Instead, I ordered a pizza, opened a bottle of wine Sarah had given me as a housewarming gift, and continued unpacking while mentally preparing for the confrontation that I knew would eventually come. Waking up in my new condo the next morning felt like stepping into an alternate reality. Sunlight streamed through the uncovered windows, illuminating the boxes stacked around my air mattress on the floor. For a moment, I felt a wave of panic. What had I done? Had I overreacted? Then I remembered the conversation with my parents, the dismissal of my goals, the clear message that Jake's ambitions mattered more than mine, and the panic subsided, replaced by conviction. I spent Sunday setting up my new home. The furniture delivery arrived as scheduled, and by evening, the place was beginning to look lived in. I hung a few pictures, arranged my books on the built-in shelves, and even managed to unpack most of my kitchen items. Throughout the day, the calls and messages from my family continued, growing increasingly desperate. Around dinner time, I finally decided to respond, sending a simple text to my parents' group chat. I'm safe and well. I need some space right now. I'll call when I'm ready to talk. The response was immediate. My phone rang seconds later, but I let it go to voicemail. I wasn't ready for that conversation yet. Monday morning brought the welcome distraction of work. I arrived early, feeling more energized than I had in months, despite the physical exhaustion of moving. My supervisor, Denise, noticed immediately. Something's different about you, she commented during our morning check-in. New haircut. I smiled. New home, actually. I bought a condo over the weekend. Her eyes widened. That's fantastic, Naomi. The one near here you were talking about. I nodded, surprised, and touched that she had remembered me mentioning it. Good for you, she said warmly. I've always appreciated your initiative. Speaking of which, the quarterly review is coming up, and I've been meaning to discuss some potential opportunities with you. By the end of our meeting, I had been assigned to lead an important new client project, a responsibility that came with a modest pay increase and the potential for a more significant promotion if it went well. It seemed that taking control of my personal life had somehow translated into new confidence at work, something Denise had picked up on immediately. The work week fell into a new rhythm. Days were filled with my job and the challenge of the new project. Evenings were spent making my condo feel like home and beginning to rebuild a social life that had withered during my time at my parents' house. I joined a local book club that met at a coffee shop down the street and signed up for a yoga class that Sarah had been trying to get me to try for years. 2 weeks after moving out, Jake showed up at my workplace unannounced. I was returning from lunch when I spotted him pacing near the entrance to my building. "Jake, what are you doing here?" I asked, stopping a few feet away from him. He looked different, somehow less polished than usual. His normally styled hair was unstyled, and he was wearing a plain t-shirt instead of the designer brands he preferred. "You wouldn't return our calls," he said accusingly. "Mom's been a mess, Dad's furious. I had to do something." "How did you know where I work?" I asked, though I knew the answer. It wasn't a secret. "Does it matter? We need to talk, Naomi." "You can't just walk out on family like that." I glanced at my watch. My lunch break was nearly over. "I have to get back to work. I only have 5 minutes." "Fine," he huffed. 5 minutes. Just tell me why you left like that. No warning, no discussion. Just a note on the table. Do you know how hurtful that was?" The irony of his concern for hurt feelings wasn't lost on me. "Jake, Mom, and Dad were planning to more than double my rent to fund your latest business idea. They didn't discuss it with me or consider my plans. They just announced it as a fait accompli." "It's their house," he countered. "They can charge what they want." "Yes, they can," I agreed. "And I can choose not to pay it and to live somewhere else." Which is exactly what I did. He ran a hand through his hair, looking frustrated. "But now everything's messed up. Dad says they were counting on your rent money to help with the store. He says I might have to wait now." So that was it. This wasn't about missing me or being concerned for my well-being. This was about the delay to his plans. "That's not my problem, Jake. I'm not responsible for funding your business ventures." "It's not just a venture," he protested. "This is going to be huge. I've already started looking at storefronts and contacting suppliers." I sighed, checking my watch again. "I really do have to get back to work. Was there something specific you wanted from me?" He hesitated, then blurted out, "Mom and Dad want you to come over for dinner this weekend, to talk things through. They sent me to ask because they thought you might be more likely to say yes to me." The manipulation was so transparent it was almost laughable. "I'm not ready for that yet, Jake. I'll reach out when I am." "So you're just cutting us off?" he demanded, his voice rising. "After everything they've done for you?" A colleague exited the building and gave us a curious look as she passed. I lowered my voice. "I'm not cutting anyone off. I'm establishing boundaries. There's a difference." "Whatever," Jake scoffed. "Just know that you're hurting Mom and Dad a lot. They don't understand why you're being so difficult about this." "I have to go," I said firmly, moving toward the building entrance. "Tell Mom and Dad I'm fine. I'll call when I'm ready." As I walked away, he called after me. "They know where you work. They'll just come here themselves if you don't reach out." I turned back briefly. That would be a very poor decision on their part. The implied threat of a scene at my workplace should have angered me, but instead it just strengthened my resolve. I was done being manipulated and taken for granted. The encounter with Jake left me shaken but also oddly empowered. For the first time, I had stood my ground without backing down or trying to please everyone. It felt uncomfortable, but also right. That evening, I called Sarah and told her about Jake's visit. "The nerve of that guy," she fumed, "making it all about him as usual." "The funny thing is," I mused as I stirred the pasta I was cooking for dinner, "a month ago I probably would have given in. I would have agreed to dinner just to keep the peace." "And now," Sarah prompted. I considered the question. "Now I realize I don't have to set myself on fire to keep other people warm, even if those people are my family." "That's growth, my friend," Sarah said approvingly. "Hey, want to come to trivia night this Thursday? Some people from my office go to this bar downtown and they're cool. Might be good to expand your social circle beyond just me and your book club ladies." I agreed readily, surprising myself. Before moving out, I would have declined, preferring to save money and time. But my new independence had awakened a desire for more connections, more experiences, a fuller life beyond work and saving. As I fell asleep that night in my new bedroom, with the city lights twinkling through my window, I felt a sense of peace despite the family turmoil. For perhaps the first time in my adult life, I was prioritizing my own well-being, and it felt revolutionary. 6 weeks after moving into my condo, life had fallen into a rhythm that felt both comfortable and exciting. My new place was fully furnished and decorated, reflecting my personal style in a way my childhood bedroom never could. At work, the client project was going exceptionally well, with Denise dropping hints about a potential promotion during our last review meeting. My social life had expanded too. Through Sarah's trivia night, I'd met a group of people who quickly became friends. We had a standing Thursday night gathering, and I'd even hosted a small dinner party at my condo the previous weekend, something that would have been impossible while living with my parents. I'd had minimal contact with my family during this time. After Jake's workplace ambush, I sent my parents a brief email explaining that I needed space and would reach out when ready. They hadn't respected this entirely. My mother still sent daily texts ranging from guilt trips to casual updates, but they hadn't shown up at my job again, which I counted as progress. I was just finishing up at work one Friday when my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Usually I'd let unknown calls go to voicemail, but something made me answer. "Hello, Naomi Taylor speaking." "Naomi, it's Jake, don't hang up." I sighed, stepping away from my desk for privacy. "I'm not hanging up. What do you want, Jake?" His voice sounded different, subdued, almost humble. "Can we meet somewhere to talk? Just you and me, no mom and dad?" I hesitated. "Why?" "Because I need to talk to you. It's important." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop halfway between my condo and our parents' house. We set a time for the following afternoon. Saturday came, and I arrived at the coffee shop 10 minutes early, securing a table in the corner for privacy. Jake walked in precisely on time, another departure from his usually casual attitude toward punctuality. The changes I'd noticed during his visit to my workplace were even more pronounced now. His designer clothes had been replaced by a simple button-down shirt and jeans. He looked thinner, his face more angular. "Thanks for meeting me," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't," I admitted. "But I was curious." He nodded, fidgeting with a sugar packet from the table. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to just listen first before you say anything. Can you do that?" Intrigued, I nodded. Jake took a deep breath. "The sports equipment store isn't happening. It was never going to happen, not really. I didn't have a business plan or suppliers or any of the things I should have had. I just I just wanted them to be proud of me for once, like they've always been of you." I nearly choked on my coffee. "Proud of me, Jake, they've always favored you. Always." He looked genuinely surprised. "That's not how I saw it. You were the successful one good grades college degree steady job. I was the screw-up who couldn't keep a job or finish school." "But they gave you everything," I countered. "Money, support, free housing. They were going to tap into their retirement fund for your business." Jake's face reddened. "About that, they didn't actually have the money. Not from their retirement, anyway. They were counting on your increased rent to fund the initial investment. When you left, everything fell apart." The revelation stunned me. "So they weren't just redirecting my rent money to you. They needed me to subsidize their lifestyle, so they could give you money they didn't actually have." "Pretty much," Jake admitted. "Dad's had some financial setbacks at work, budget cuts at the school district, and Mom's boutique hasn't been doing well with all the online competition. They've been struggling for a while but didn't want anyone to know." I sat back processing this information. "And now," Jake looked down at the table, "now they're having to face reality. They put the house on the market last week. It's too big for them anyway with both of us gone. They're looking at smaller places more affordable. Both of us. You moved out too." He nodded, a ghost of a smile crossing his face. "I got an apartment with a roommate. Nothing fancy, but it's a start. And I got a job at that sporting goods store, the one I quit before. The manager was surprisingly willing to give me another chance. I studied my brother's face, searching for signs of the entitled young man I'd known all my life. Instead, I saw someone who looked tired, but somehow more substantial, more real. "What changed, Jake?" He was quiet for a long moment. "You did, I guess. You leaving like that." It was like a splash of cold water, made everyone wake up. Mom and Dad realized they couldn't keep pretending everything was fine financially. And I realized I couldn't keep living like a teenager forever. And the business idea, put on hold indefinitely, he said with a shrug. Maybe someday when I actually know what I'm doing and have my own money to invest. But right now, I'm focusing on keeping this job, learning the business from the ground up. We talked for nearly 2 hours, covering ground we'd never explored before. Jake admitted to feeling insecure in my shadow growing up, compensating by demanding more attention and resources from our parents. I shared how hurt I'd felt by their constant prioritization of his needs over mine. "I always thought you had it all together," he confessed, "that you didn't need them like I did." "Everyone needs support, Jake, even people who seem like they have it all together." As we prepared to leave, Jake hesitated. "They miss you, Mom and Dad. They're too proud to say it, but they do. This whole thing made them realize they might lose you for good." I wasn't ready to make any promises about reconciliation, but I felt the hard knot of resentment inside me beginning to loosen. "Tell them I'm doing well, and that maybe in a little while we could try a dinner. Just dinner, no discussions about money or living arrangements." Jake smiled a genuine smile, not the cocky grin I was used to. "I'll tell them. And Naomi, thanks for meeting me today. It means a lot." As I walked home, I reflected on how sometimes the most painful decisions can lead to unexpected growth, not just for ourselves, but for those around us. By refusing to continue in an unhealthy dynamic, I had inadvertently forced change for everyone involved. 8 months have passed since I walked out of my parents' house, with nothing but a moving truck full of possessions and a determination to prioritize my own well-being. In that time, both my life and my family dynamics have transformed in ways I never could have predicted. My condo has become a true home filled with light plants and personal touches that make it uniquely mine. The promotion at work came through bringing not just a welcome salary increase, but also new challenges that keep me engaged and growing professionally. My friendship circle has expanded beyond Sarah to include the trivia night crew, my book club members, and even a few neighbors from my building. Weekends, once devoted solely to saving money and recuperating from work, now include hiking trips, museum visits, and the occasional concert or theater performance. I'm living fully in a way I never did before. The most significant changes, however, have been in my relationship with my family. 2 weeks after my coffee shop meeting with Jake, I agreed to have dinner with my parents at a neutral location, a restaurant downtown. The conversation was stilted at first, with obvious tension simmering beneath polite inquiries about my work and condo. Eventually, my father cleared his throat and addressed the elephant in the room. "We owe you an apology, Naomi. We didn't treat you fairly and we're sorry." My mother reached across the table to touch my hand. "We took you for granted because you were always so capable. It was wrong of us." Their apology wasn't perfect. They still made some excuses about financial pressures and good intentions. But it was sincere. And more importantly, it was the first time they had ever acknowledged the imbalance in how they treated Jake and me. Since then, we've been slowly rebuilding our relationship on new terms. They sold the family home and downsized to a small townhouse closer to the city. Jake continues to work at the sporting goods store, recently earning a promotion to assistant manager. He's taking business courses at the community college in the evenings, this time, with a clear purpose and his own money. We have family dinner once a month now, a tradition that feels healing rather than obligatory. My parents have visited my condo several times, genuinely admiring the space I've created. They even attended a housewarming party I hosted, meeting my new friends and seeing this chapter of my life unfold. The most profound lesson in all of this has been about boundaries. For years, I tried to earn my parents' approval by being self-sufficient, never complaining, never asking for help. I thought if I was perfect enough, they would finally see me the way they saw Jake, as someone worthy of unconditional support and celebration. What I've learned is that healthy relationships aren't about earning love through performance or sacrifice. They're about mutual respect, clear boundaries, and the courage to walk away when those boundaries are violated. Last week, Jake stopped by my condo with a housewarming gift that was several months late, a beautiful hanging plant for my kitchen window. As we sat on my balcony drinking coffee, he confessed something. "You know, I resented you for years," he said, watching the sunset over the city skyline. "You were always so together, so independent. I felt like I could never measure up." "And now?" I asked. He smiled thoughtfully. "Now I'm grateful. Watching you stand up for yourself gave me permission to grow up, to be my own person instead of the golden child who never has to try." In that moment, I realized something powerful. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for others is to love yourself enough to walk away from dynamics that diminish you. By refusing to play my assigned role in our family drama, I had created space for everyone to write a new story. My journey isn't perfect. There are still awkward moments with my parents, old patterns that try to reassert themselves. Jake and I are building a sibling relationship essentially from scratch, learning how to be friends as adults when we never really were as children. But sitting in my own home surrounded by the life I've built on my own terms, I feel a sense of peace that was unimaginable 8 months ago. I've discovered that true independence isn't about isolation or proving your worth through self-sacrifice. It's about knowing your value inherently and creating connections that honor rather than diminish that worth. Sometimes walking away isn't the end of a story, but the beginning of a better one for yourself, and unexpectedly for those you leave behind. In choosing myself, I ultimately made space for my entire family to choose better versions of themselves too. Do you have a story about setting boundaries with family members? Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between your own well-being and family expectations? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe for more real-life experiences. And remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to choose yourself even when it's difficult. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you courage on your own path to setting healthy boundaries.